Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Vijana Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangulangayate Girim Yakrapata Bande Sri Guru Dinatarinam. Hare Krishna. So, Jairade, before we post anything, I wanted to talk about something I think is extremely important. Maybe you understand this, but I wanted to talk about this. Often when we're praying, we're putting ourselves in a vulnerable situation because we're admitting a weakness, or often, not always, but often prayer is we admit a weakness, right? Then we pray for help. So we're in a vulnerable position, correct? And vulnerability is in many senses synonymous with humility, because humility means to be real or honest about our shortcomings. And vulnerability is the same thing. It's to admit our shortcomings. So that's very good. And in the secular world, although this is changing, but traditionally in the secular world, especially in the corporate world, it is considered an asset to show a very self-confident, strong persona, like you're not troubled or bothered by anything, and almost like you're not human. And some aspects of the corporate world are realizing that to not be human is a great problem. And we have talked about this also, to present ourselves as something we are not. It's not healthy for us. It's also not healthy for people around us, because if we do it, they'll tend to do it. But the opposite is true. Vulnerability is a strength, it's not a weakness. So this personifying strength, which is inauthentic, is a weakness. It's not a strength. And being vulnerable is a strength because it's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult to be vulnerable. It's difficult to be humble. And when we do it, it empowers, or it makes it okay for other people to be vulnerable. And when we don't do it, then it causes other people to also be inauthentic. And it's probably not as big a problem. I don't know, because I've never worked in the corporate world within ISKCON. Maybe it's bigger, I don't know. But it shouldn't be, because spiritual life is all about honesty and humility and so forth. So it shouldn't be, correct? So I thought that was important to point out, that that's what prayer is all about. It's being vulnerable in front of Krishna. And now if we look at the prayers of the acharyas, their prayers are not private, they're written down. That means they know we are going to read them, or they want us to read them so they can show us how to pray. They can show us. Prayer means vulnerability, and that is what it means to be a Vaishnava, to be vulnerable. Interesting, isn't it? Like, you may have your vulnerable prayers, but you don't write them necessarily and put them on social media. You might, but probably more often than not, we don't, if at all. And they're writing them down and expressing their lackings, their weaknesses, their faults for public view. It's a great lesson that's what Vaishnavas do. And we can see it's a great strength to publicly admit a fault. Now, human nature, it seems, is that when we commit a mistake or fault that might be embarrassing to admit or might have some negative ramification, we don't publicly admit it. Uh, Generally, people don't admit things until they realize that the evidence is out and everyone knows they're guilty. Then they'll say, okay, I did it. Because what else can they say? They generally don't come and confess when they committed the act. They just hope nobody finds out, and then they continue, right? Isn't it generally like that? Have you noticed? It's very rare that someone comes and says, I did this. I have to step down from my position. That's honest. That's vulnerable. So it's a problem that we make a mistake and then we wait to be caught, and then we try to talk our way out of it, maybe deny it. And then finally, when the evidence is clear and we realize that everybody knows what I did, we say, okay, I did it. We don't want to cultivate that mood. And it takes tremendous strength to admit one's faults. It takes tremendous strength to acknowledge the faults when others present them to us. But that's what's necessary. I'm working on a PowerPoint presentation on leadership because I want to share this with all the devotees who are leaders, and especially within our own Sangha. And as I was thinking about it and collecting, just contemplating it and based on my experience and some of the experience of other people, one of the things that came out is that the leader that's most respected and most inspiring is the leader that's most human, most real. Because a leader who's most real, most human, will be vulnerable. It makes it easy. Will be forgiving if you make mistakes, because he knows he makes mistakes. He accepts that you make mistakes. He'll be forgiving. He forgives himself. He'll forgive others. If he deals with himself in a vulnerable way, he will be more human in his dealings. He'll be more caring, because ultimately we want leaders to be caring. And so he will care because that's natural to care for a human being. So I was thinking, lead like a human being, not like a god or something. We're not trying to portray ourselves as God, even as gods, even though sometimes we may be treated like that. But um, we're treated like that not because we're gods. We're treated because we have a position. I want to tell you a really interesting story. It's two interesting stories. You're really going to like this. This one leadership guru, who was also an author, said that there was another author in leadership guru that he just hated because they were kind of doing the same thing. And this other person, because he's an author, then sometimes his books would sell more than this other person, and he just ended up not liking them. You know how you may not like somebody because they're good at doing what you do. So so both of them ended up in a conference together somehow or other, and the person who was organizing the conference had these two people together. So there's the person who's an author and the other person who's the author that the first person is envious of because he's so successful. And then the moderator of the show said, can you each say something about one another, not about yourself, but about the other person? And the first person's very honest, and he said, You are so good at what you do and so successful. I'm totally envious of you, and it makes me very insecure to be around you because you're so good. And you know what the other person said? He said, I feel exactly the same way about you. They both felt exactly the same way about one another. Interesting, isn't it? But they were both honest, and everyone appreciated that. So, you know, you may look at others and think they're not struggling or they're not having difficulty. It's not a fact. They are. And yesterday we asked some questions about what your challenges are with japa, maybe on Instagram. And devotees are really challenged with japa. If you're challenged with japa, you're part of the group. Devotees are extremely challenged with japas in so many ways. So, don't feel like you're alone in this. It's like, yeah, it's really common. Then the other story, this is really interesting. This is in case, I think this is a side, we're being sidetracked here, but it's in case you ever become a leader, and we're all leaders in some sense. This man had been invited to give a talk at a business meeting. And at that time, he had some high position in the government, I believe. So they flew him in business class. They picked him up at the airport. They took him to the hotel, really nice hotel, brought him to the conference, and served him his coffee in a ceramic cup. He came back next year and he wasn't any longer in that position. And this time they served him coffee in a styrofoam cup. And he looked at the cup and he said, I want to tell you something. He said, last year when I came, you flew me first class, business class, brought me to the hotel, brought me here and served me coffee in a ceramic cup. This year, you flew me coach. You didn't pick me up at the airport. The hotel room wasn't as nice, and I had to Uber to the conference. And now you're serving me coffee in a styrofoam cup. He said, last year you were honoring, I'm the same person, but last year you were honoring my position, not me. He wasn't saying that in a negative way. He was saying that for the understanding of leaders, that sometimes you are honored for your position, not because of who you are, what you've done necessarily, but for your position. So um, don't it ever, we don't want things to go to our head just because I'm put in a position of leadership. Naturally, I'll get some honor or respect. Anyway, that was a little bit of a diversion from the original topic was prayer is about vulnerability. Vulnerability is a strength. We're vulnerable in front of Krishna, in front of Guru. We don't need to hide anything from anybody. And hiding is pretense, and pretense is a huge stumbling block. Okay. Chai Radhe, are you here? Can you post? Okay. This is from the Mukundamala Stotram, and it's entitled, Pray for Pure Devotional Service. Oh my Lord, I have no attachment for religiosity or for accumulating wealth or for enjoying sense gratification. Let these come as they inevitably must, in accordance with my past deeds. But I do pray for this most cherished boon, birth after birth. Let me render unflinching devotional service unto your two lotus feet. Okay, Abhishek, I'll let you know when we need the rest. Okay. So, as you may have noticed, this prayer is almost identical with the fourth verse of Shikshashtakam. And I believe we discussed that in class here. Did we discuss that? Yeah. Of course, you can never over discuss anything, but King Kulakshekar is the author of the Mukundamala Stotram. And he, before, in his earlier life, before he renounced his kingship, he had a lot of wealth. And he had, as a king, as you know, kings have opportunity for enjoying sense gratification in a way that ordinary people can't because of all the wealth and power they have, or the power and opulence that are given to them. And so when he says, I have no desire for wealth, we should pay notice. He's a person who likely had more wealth and power than we'll ever have in our life. So when someone who has that level of wealth and power says, I don't want it, you should take note. Not that it's wrong to have money, but he's saying, I don't want these things for sense gratification. And why is he saying it? Because he had it. And now he has pure bhakti, so he can compare the two. And one is not satisfying, one is frustrating. There's no love in sense gratification. That's really important. So when a devotee says, I just want pure devotional service, I don't want sense gratification, another way of looking at that is the devotee is saying, there is no, I want love, and there's no love in sense gratification. You don't extract love generally from sense gratification. Maybe you can say, if I'm engaged in sense gratification with another human being, maybe that develops a bond. That may be. But when you're engaged in sense gratification with material objects, you may call it love, but you actually know, I love my car, but that's not the love that the soul is hankering for, or even the heart is hankering for, right? So we're hankering for love. In sense gratification, there's no love. So if we're hankering for love and there's no love in sense gratification, then the more sense gratification I get, it doesn't give me more love. It just gives me more sense gratification. But sense gratification is ultimately not what I'm looking for, not what the heart's looking for. It's looking for love. We have another example, which maybe is greater than this example of King Kulakshekar, and that's the example of Lord Brahma. And when Lord Brahma hit the age of 50, he apparently had some kind of midlife crisis, we could call it. He went to Krishna and he said that I've tried to enjoy and I'm frustrated with it. I forget what else he said, help, I just want to surrender or whatever. But he said, I'm frustrated with it when he was 50. Now, the cycle of 4 ages together is Brahma's 12 hours. Or 1,000 cycles, I forget. But anyway, his 50 years, at the age of 50, that's about 165 trillion of our years. So he had sufficient time to enjoy, and even if it was only 50 of our years, but it's on a higher planet where enjoyment is greater. So when King Kulakshekar says, I don't want sense gratification, and the connotation is, I've had a lot. When Brahma says, I don't want sense gratification, the connotation is, he had greater sense gratification over a longer time, and he's frustrated. So what do I want? I want pure bhakti. Sometimes you can't realize that you want pure bhakti until you get frustrated materially, until you have everything you ever wanted and you still want more. And then maybe that's the only time you can realize that what I'm really looking for is Krishna, pure devotional service, right? Yeah. So, and we have spoken about another point before, which is important, and that is, what if I don't want pure bhakti? What if I do want sense gratification? And I'm trying to be a devotee. And so it's not uncommon that we want sense gratification, and sense gratification in and of itself is not a problem if we're gratifying the basic needs of the body and mind to keep, as Prabhupada said, to keep body and soul together, then that it's not bad, it's normal. What these verses are explaining is, if the desire for sense gratification exceeds the needs we have to live comfortably but not excessively, then it can be a problem, because then it can start to work against us. So the whole idea is, in bhakti, the whole idea is everything we do should advance our bhakti, and nothing we do should get in the way. So someone might say, well, how do I know what level of material opulence is required? How do I know what level of sense gratification is required? Well, how much is going to help you and how much is going to hurt you? That's how you know. So you have let's say you have a little area. Below this is not enough. Above this is too much. Below this, I'll always be hankering for sense gratification. Above this, I'll be frustrated and waste time and energy. So that's the idea. And, the first thing is we understand the principle. Bhagavatam principle, yayatma supersediti, bhakti will satisfy. So maybe you're not satisfied, but you understand the principle. At least on paper, it says, I'll be satisfied. Okay, so we go with that. And on paper, it says sense gratification won't satisfy me. So in theory, I know this is the goal. So then the question comes, but what if I don't have enough realization of that? And then that's when this prayer gets altered a little bit. We don't pray, Krishna, what does he say? I have no attachment for religiosity. That means I have no, it's basically he's saying, because religiosity is used for improving one's material position. So he's saying, he's basically saying, I have no attachment for anything in this world, and then specifically for wealth, enjoying sense gratification, and saying I have no desire to enjoy sense gratification. It pretty much covers everything. And so you want to be authentic. And so you might say, it's not authentic for me to pray this way because I don't feel this way. Okay, that's true for many devotees. Maybe you don't feel this way. All right. So what do? You don't pray this way. This is an example. We're meant to understand and follow in the footsteps of devotees like Kinko, Shekhar. So what do we do? Well, in bhakti, the first principle is that we understand this is how I should be feeling, and this is how I should be thinking. And we understand the goal is pure bhakti, but I don't feel that way. Okay, so that's not a problem. It is a problem, but it's not a problem in the sense that you at least understand that's how you should feel. And if you don't feel it, then instead of saying, Krishna, I don't want any sense gratification, the prayer is, Krishna, help me to not want any sense gratification. Help me to not want to accumulate money unnecessarily. Help me to not want to use religion for my material well-being because I want it to some degree, maybe not fully, but maybe to some degree I want it. So that becomes the prayer. So sometimes prayers are not what we're feeling directly, but it's feeling what I want to be feeling. Krishna, I don't feel like this, but can you help me feel like this? I want to have billions of dollars, and I want to have 30 luxury cars and a mansion in every city in the world. That's what I want. Can you help me, Krishna, not want that? Can you instill within my heart the feeling that I just want to serve you, and whatever I have or whatever I desire, I only want to desire that for your service. Because really, when we're desiring things in this world, we can contextualize it by saying, I want these things for my service. Why do you want the big house? It's for my service. Why do you want the 30 luxury cars? It's for my service. Why do you want to accumulate bucketfuls of money? It's for my service. And what is your service? It's for my sensual enjoyment. So in bhakti, it's just the opposite. It's for Krishna's sense gratification. Why do you want lots of money? For Krishna's sense gratification. Why do you want lots of cars? So we can take lots of devotees out to spread Krishna consciousness. Why do you want bucketfuls of money? Because we want to open many centers. We want to print books for Krishna's sense gratification. So that's really all it boils down to. It's my sense gratification versus Krishna's. Okay, how much do I get? How much does he get? How much do I give him? How much do I get? You could get sense gratification, but you should get enough that it doesn't become an impediment to you giving Krishna his sense gratification, because that's the ultimate goal. So I hope that didn't depress anybody. You can have your sense gratification, but don't deprive Krishna of his sense gratification in your effort for your sense gratification, but your sense gratification should facilitate his sense gratification so that, okay, Krishna, I am comfortable. I have a nice house, nice this, nice that. Got my 500 saris in the closet. Now I'm satisfied. I will $499, not completely satisfied. 500, now I'm satisfied. 400 pairs of earrings, 35 pairs of shoes. I'm playing with the women here. Those men don't wear saris, right? And men wouldn't want 500 saris. No, okay. Not 500. What's realistic? 80, 60, 50? That's more realistic, yeah. Now, how many dhotis does your husband have? Well, they all pretty much are white anyway, so different color board. Maybe they have 8, 10. I have a lot of dhotis because every time I travel, I get a dhoti or two. So I would consider myself like on the high end. I probably have 12 dhotis. I think that's a lot for most men, right? Okay, I have enough dhotis. I have enough kurtas. I have enough sweaters. I have my 3 pairs of shoes. That's like, actually I have like 5. I get shoes donated also. That's like already confusing my mind. I have enough. And then I have things that I need for service. And if I don't have enough things for service, then it impedes my service. If I can get the facility, I get it. But it's for Krishna's sense gratification. We want Krishna to be happy. So that's the idea. So if I'm not there yet with this prayer, then I can pray to be there. That's okay. Krishna, I know I should desire A, B, and C, but I don't. Can you give me that desire, or can you place within my heart the seed of the consciousness which would generate that desire? That's the idea. 100 cycles of 4 yugas, yeah. So one day, 1,000 cycles, excuse me. One day of Brahma is 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas. So anyway, it came out to 165 trillion. As far as it's 311 trillion. So it's 165. No, it's not. It's 155. Sorry, excuse me. It should be 155.5. Is that correct? 155.5? No, 155 times 2 is 311. No, yes. Is that correct? You're all looking at me like, I don't know how to count. Why are you asking me? Okay, 311 divided by 2 equals 155.5. Yes. Just shows you my brain still works. It's good to know, right? That's a good test, right? Divide 311 trillion in 2. So after 155.5 trillion years, Lord Brahma was completely burned out and said to Krishna, I'm burned out. So, my dear devotees, you will not have 155 trillion years to try to enjoy, and you will not have the facility of Lord Brahma to enjoy. And if he couldn't do it in 155.5 trillion years with the facility he had, then it's intelligent to think we're not going to be able to do it either. So what's going to make you happy is what? It's going to be love. Where do you get that love? You get that love from service. So when you do things for Krishna, that's when you're happy. Like devotees who can afford it, they have beautiful deity worship at their home. They have like beautiful altars, beautiful deities. They make nice clothes. And one of the reasons grihastas are supposed to do deity worship? This is interesting. Does anybody know why? Just unmute if you know why. This Zoom is weird because everyone's muted, and in real life, we don't have meetings with people like with masking tape on their tongue, and every time they want to talk, they have to like pull it out. But on Zoom, it's like you have to pull off your masking tape. It's so unreal. Anyway, the reason that if you study Shastra, you'll sometimes come across that deity worship should be done especially by grihastas. And the reason is so they don't spend their money, they don't waste their money on unlimited sense gratification. Because if you have more money than you need, what do? You purchase more things than you need. You purchase more enjoyment than you need. Of course, if you have more money than you need, you can buy Prabhupada's books and distribute them. You can afford to go to the Holy Dham periodically. You can support projects. It's all great. I encourage you, make a lot of money because we need lots of money to spread Krishna consciousness. But especially there was a time when there was no spreading of the movement. So the grihastas are making money. Then when they have more money than they need, what are they going to do with it? Spend it on your deity rather than, spend it on your, whatever you would spend on your 499th sari. You buy one for the deity, make clothes for them instead of for yourself. And that way you get to experience, you can buy a sari, but then you get to experience love, you get to experience love by buying that sari. What do you think? Is that clear? You're spending your money and you're getting love back. Otherwise, you're spending your money and you're getting sense gratification back. So it's like, what do you want? Yes? Good? Understood? Yeah. Okay. Scarlett says, I'm too old to ask for this, but I pray to Krishna, help me do my rounds with love, not fear of rebirth. Do I get my prayers answered, or Krishna say, you would not get in this life? We were saying in the last class that whatever we pray for, we should at least try to become somewhat qualified for. And generally, whatever your desire is, if you are persistent, it will be fulfilled when Krishna feels you're ready. And in his own way, he'll fulfill it. Krishna will give you everything that you want if you're qualified. If you qualify yourself and you're sincere and you beg and pray, why not? So don't give up faith. Now we're going to read the next. This is from a lecture on the 16th verse of the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So they do not know that I, Jesus, cannot be killed, but they are thinking that they are killing. You see? But that was offensive. Therefore, he begged the Lord to be excused, because God cannot excuse to the offenders of the devotee. He can't excuse one who is offender to God, but if someone is offender to the devotee, God never excuses. Therefore, he prayed for them. That is the devotee's qualification. He prays for everyone, even of his enemy. And he could not be killed. That he knew. But these rascals, they thought they were killing Jesus. I was just thinking the other day, because occasionally I have some discussions with devotees or some thoughts about Christianity and all the narratives you hear in Christianity. And Christianity is come up with a narrative of the life of Jesus and the salvation. And of course, the Christians, that narrative was not there, the day after Jesus left. It evolved over hundreds of years to make sense and also as a kind of branding for Christianity. And I always wondered about this crucifixion. Yeah, it was actually because it was Easter, the resurrection, excuse me. And I had remembered, I said, didn't Prabhupada say that you cannot kill a pure devotee, you cannot kill Jesus Christ? I thought I heard Prabhupada say that, and now that's what Prabhupada's saying. So it's interesting because Christianity is founded on the death and resurrection of Christ, and Prabhupada's saying, indirectly saying, well, what you've based your whole theology on didn't actually happen exactly the way you think it happened. Anyway, that's not the point of what Prabhupada's saying here, but I just wanted to underscore that, highlight that. So this is a different kind of prayer than we've been reading, isn't it? This is the first time I think we're reading about a prayer, or this is an example of a prayer where devotees praying for others. And praying for others is what devotees do. When we are trying to help people become Krishna conscious, it's quite natural to pray for them, isn't it? Oh, I hope they understand. I hope they're going to come to this program. I hope, they were reading Prabhupada's books this week. I hope they chanted rounds. It's natural. It's natural compassion that we have. And so praying for another is it's not only natural, but it's important. And as we pray for others, Krishna is inclined to show compassion to those that we pray for. Isn't that nice? So Krishna, please help this person, be merciful on this person. Sometimes devotees say, I chant around for somebody. There's no shastric process like you can chant around for somebody, but certainly more specifically, probably what they mean is that, well, they think I would like to offer the benefits of this round. Maybe that's possible. I don't have any evidence, but certainly you could pray for them through the holy name, although that's not like the recommended way to chant Hare Krishna, but you can chant your 17th round and pray for them. So that's what devotees do. That's what Vaishnavas do. And when we pray to Krishna, please be merciful on this person, that Krishna sees that, Krishna hears that. And so we can pray, when we pray for other devotees' well-being, we pray to Krishna for their well-being. Krishna, please show your mercy on this person. And if you are pure in your desire, Krishna is very inclined to show mercy on those that you want to be merciful to. So that's important. So don't think that your prayers for someone go in vain. Pray to Krishna for the well-being of somebody. That's important. Okay? So like we should pray, we want to pray the whole world becomes Krishna conscious, certainly. But specific individuals we can pray for. Yes? Good? Okay. So now what's described in this verse is not something that anyone can easily imitate. And that's specifically what's happening here. Prabhupada is explaining that these people are killing him. So Jesus knows that Krishna forgives us when we make mistakes, but he doesn't forgive when we commit offense, or he doesn't easily forgive when we commit offense to a devotee. So Jesus is concerned, just as Takaharidas was concerned, about the people who are killing him or attempting to kill him, that they will suffer due to this offense. And so Jesus is praying for them because he doesn't want to see them suffer. So this is This is how we understand what compassion means. Compassion means I don't want to see anybody suffer. That's the definition of compassion. It it puts me in, I am in pain when other people are in pain. That's what compassion means. So Jesus is, they're killing him, but he's in pain, thinking that they're going to be in pain. Isn't that interesting? So, and compassion it's a quality that we should be developing. We should see it developing. At least we should practice it. And it's obviously it's extremely difficult to pray for the well-being of someone who has hurt us. Generally, our conditioned human response is if someone hurts us, we would like them to be hurt as well. And that's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in some of his songs, he says, I'm happy when I see others suffer. I'm unhappy when they're happy. Demonstrating that conditioned tendency that especially if someone causes me suffering, I want to get back at them. And when they suffer, I think, well, they deserved it. It's good. It's good for them. You ever think like that? Yeah, it's good for them. They deserve it. What did they expect? Or they can't get away with this kind of behavior. So that's our normal reaction. But you don't see that reaction amongst pure devotees. So again, this is something that we would have to pray, Krishna, please help me develop this kind of compassion. This is incredible, right? And I think I've talked about this to you. I'm not sure all of you, but the idea that sometimes if I'm successful in my service, I don't think that I have to develop these qualities. I can just I can get through the gate to Vaikuntha if I just do successful service and somehow or other I finish my rounds. And as far as compassion and other qualities like that, I don't worry about it. I don't really need it. It's not going to be incumbent upon me. But another way of looking at this is that this kind of compassion, or when compassion is developing within us, it's a sign that we're advancing. Vice versa, if we don't see this kind of compassion, at least if we don't see that we're moving towards this kind of compassion, it's a sign that our spiritual health is not good. So you may say, I'm just not a compassionate person. Okay, but you're a devotee, and the devotee must be compassionate. So in one lecture, Srila Prabhupada said we should see how the qualities of a devotee are developing within me. Like take inventory, and so I don't have this kind of compassion. I'm not gonna cry that I don't have this kind of compassion, but is some kind of compassion increasing? Is my heart softening over time? Do I suffer when I see the sufferings of others? This is important because if that's not true, then something is wrong. I'm not saying you have to feel great compassion, but some compassion should be there. Some desire should be there to help people become Krishna conscious. Of course, first start with yourself, but it should be there. Hmm. Okay. Kamalolochan says we can heal the world of its hypocrisy by first healing ourselves of our own hypocrisies. Yeah. So you could say also, well, compassion for others begins with self-compassion. That's true. Healing the world begins with healing our own selves. Mm. I think it's a it's a good question to ask ourselves. as Prabhupada said, are the 26 qualities of a devotee, are they manifest within me? Are not all, not fully, but are they manifesting? Are they developing? Mm. I think it's an essentially important question to ask ourselves. It's like you have an illness and you're taking the medicine, you're doing what your doctor tells you to do. When you see your doctor next, he's going to ask you, how do you feel? What's going on? And by the symptoms, he's going to know if you're improving. So in the same way, there's a spiritual checkup. And so your doctor or guru is going to ask you, well, are you becoming more tolerant, more humble, more compassionate? How are you doing in the integrity department? How's the false ego doing? It's like doing a health checkup. So we should be doing this kind of health checkup. And because if things aren't improving, then probably it reflects on offenses to the holy name or offenses to devotees, because these things should be improving. So then if they're not, we reflect, okay, what's missing? What do I need to do? What's the status of my japa? Because in theory, if our rounds are good, then we should be successful. The good qualities should be developing. And if they're not, then the first question I would ask is, how's your japa? So let's say I was your doctor and I'm telling you what to do. And I know if you do everything I said, you'll get better. But you come back and you see me and I say, well, how do you feel? And you say, not so good. My first question would be, where's your japa at? How's that going? So that's always the first place to look. Hare Krishna. Okay. Gauranga Ananda. Abhishek says, if Krishna likes a devotee who is compassionate, and I don't have it, and Krishna gave us opportunity to show compassion, why not try to become what Krishna wants us to be like? Yeah. I mean, devotee means we're trying to please Krishna. So if I'm not compassionate, but Krishna wants me to be compassionate, then shouldn't I try? What do you think? Yes? Good idea. Chop is our medicine. Yeah. Okay. Chop is the most powerful medicine. And if you don't take the medicine or you don't take it properly, then you're going to see the symptoms of the disease continue. And the symptoms of the disease is our human condition nature, isn't it? Yeah. So if you're seeing a lot of your human condition nature, then yeah, that's not a good sign, is it? You should be concerned. Doctor, I'm not getting better. Well, are you taking those 16 pills I gave you? Yeah, but sometimes I take them in the morning, and sometimes I take them at night, and sometimes I forget if it's 16 or 15, or I don't know. Some days I only took 8, and the doctor says, well, how am I supposed to help you if you don't follow my instructions? This is a bigger problem than you may imagine. You're not the only one who has this problem. This is a universal problem. Okay, we have another quote, Abhishek. Prahlad, this is a quote from SPOG. What's SPOG stand for? Who knows? Someone want to guess what SPOG is? Supreme Personality of Godhead. Is this Krishna book? No. What book is it? Prahlad Maharaj doesn't want to go back to Godhead alone. Even in the material world, if a person is not interested in others' welfare, he should be considered condemned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Oh, it's not from there. That should be from the fourth canto of Bhagavatam, no? Anyway, there's a story in the Bhagavatam that Prithu Maharaj was chastising Mother Bhumi because Mother Bhumi, who is the earth, didn't want to feed anybody because she said, well, look at these people are not devotees and they're messing everything up. So I'm not really inspired to feed them. So Prithu Maharaj was saying, well, you're not compassionate. You have to feed them. And I believe this statement is from there. But if not, a similar statement was made there. So it's an interesting point because here it's not just talking about compassion for devotees. It's talking about compassion as a normal human quality, a human, to be considered human. It's like you graduate from university. We need to graduate or you get in the university. We need to graduate into human life. And so to graduate into human life, one of the qualifications is compassion. And where Prabhupada says you're condemned, one aspect of what that means is you're not even a human being. And if you're not even a human being, then you'll be condemned. What does that mean? You'll suffer for your actions, for your thinking. Right? Interesting, don't you think? If you're not compassionate, you're condemned by Krishna. Even if you're not a devotee, just an ordinary person, still, you should be compassionate as a human. It's the quality of a human being. So when Prahlad Maharaj is offered liberation, then what does he say? He says, thank you, but thank you for liberation, but I don't want to go alone. It's not going to, I won't be happy going alone. I need to take, as I have often said, don't go back to Godhead alone. Take as many people as possible with you. Now, those of you who are initiated, maybe you didn't realize this when you're initiated, but one of the reasons we get initiated is to help spread Krishna consciousness. That means in some way, directly or indirectly, doing something to help other people become Krishna conscious. That's part of the commitment of being initiated devotee. So you can, maybe we should have a t-shirt, right? Don't go back to Godhead alone. Can you send that to Anuradha? Can you send that to Ashalata? Don't go back to Godhead alone. So it's just a little phrase that's nice to remember, that we've been saved by Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada, and we've been saved by our spiritual master. And so we ask them, well, what can I do to repay you? And one of the things that they will say is, you go back to Godhead and take as many people with you as possible. But that could be the second line for the shirt. Don't go back to Godhead alone. Take as many people as possible with you. So if you get there alone, the security guards are going to ask you, well, where's everybody else that you're bringing? So I'm just coming along. Well, you can't come alone. You don't get in here alone. You got to bring people, go back and get some people and bring them. Yeah. But here in this quotation from Prabhupada, it's described that Prahlad Maharaj, this is just how he feels. This is who he is. So it's natural for a pure devotee. Okay. Take as many people as you can. I don't know if that's the way we'd say it. Take as many people as you can. Maybe. Okay, the next one. This is from the seventh canto. So I guess the last quote is probably from the seventh canto. But it was also there in the story of Prithu Maharaj, same thing. Prithu Maharaj was condemning Bhumi for not being compassionate. Another significant point in this verse is that by devotional service, Prahlad Maharaj does not want to benefit alone. What? That doesn't make sense. Another significant point in this verse is that by devotional service, Prahlad Maharaj does not want to benefit alone. Okay, does not want the benefit. Rather, he prays to the Lord that all of us fallen souls in the material world may, by the grace of the Lord, engage in the service of his servant and thus be delivered. The grace of the Lord is not at all difficult. It's not at all difficult for the Lord to bestow. And thus Prahlad Maharaj wants to save the whole world by spreading Krishna consciousness. So now you might think, oh, I'm not Prahlad Maharaj, so, I'd be happy if the whole world went to hell, as long as I got my dal rice and chapatis and my sweets on Sunday. Then I'd be fine. Okay, we understand, but when we become devotees, then we have an obligation to manifest the compassion of those who are compassionate on us. So those who are compassionate on us want us to be compassionate upon others. So maybe I'm not compassionate, but I've been given that order to be compassionate. So I was thinking yesterday that we have a situation sometimes where we're going out to give Krishna consciousness, not because we're compassionate, but because our spiritual master asked us to do it. Have you ever done that? I don't want to do this, but my Guru Maharaj wants me to. So I go out and I meet people, I give them books or whatever it is I'm doing. And I may not be naturally attracted to do that, but I do it because they ask me to. So that's a kind of compassion. It's not mature compassion. It's not, it can't stay that way. But in the beginning, sometimes at least that's all we can do. And it's better than doing nothing. So I don't care if this person goes to hell or to heaven or Krishna. I just want my chapatis and dal and rice and sabji and sweet. But my Guru Maharaj asked me to be compassionate. So I will show compassion to this person. I will care about them because my Guru Maharaj cares. So that's where it begins. And Krishna consciousness spread so quickly because of Prabhupada's compassion. So because he was compassionate, then we acted with compassion because we were meant to facilitate his compassion. He wanted to save the world. That was his desire. He wanted everyone to be Krishna conscious. So that became our desire, even though it wasn't our desire, it became our desire. So we we want to make our Guru's desire our desire, even if it's not our desire. And that way we become empowered or we representative of the Guru. And so even though I'm not compassionate, I'll make his compassion my desire. So then I become compassionate through empowerment. And so compassion is very important. Does that make sense to you? Mm, yeah. So what was Prabhupada's desire? Prabhupada expressed his desire different times in different places, and he expressed it as my desires that every want to see that everyone becomes Krishna conscious. That's my desire. So, okay. Sounds like a good desire, doesn't it? I want to see everyone become Krishna conscious. Okay, that's Prabhupada's desire. Can I make that my desire? Well, I'm not that compassionate. Okay. But still, can you make Prabhupada's desire your desire? So you're not generating the desire, you're not compassionate enough to generate it, but can you be compassionate enough to make that your desire? And the answer is yes, you can. So you go out and you do what you can to spread Krishna consciousness because you want to make his desire your desire. And that's how it works. So it's the Hare Krishna movement is a disciplic succession of compassion. We're taking the compassion of Mahaprabhu as it's been given through the disciplic succession, and we're just distributing it, even we may not be that compassionate. But by doing that, we're manifesting compassion in an indirect way, you could say. And then eventually that that compassion will manifest in our hearts, or at least we hope it will. Okay. Does anyone have any questions so far? Uh, my daughter had her birthday um, on April 8th. It didn't, it didn't, it didn't, sorry, I forget the context, but I was saying to some of my godbrothers and sisters that it's anxiety to have children. And they're saying, well, what are you talking about? Your daughter's like an angel, she's like a pure devotee and, she's like, no problem. I, I said, that's right, but they still get sick and they still have problems and they still get in car accidents. And last night at 10:20, I wrote my daughter, said, where are you? Because the car had broken down. And I thought maybe it had broken down again. So at 10:20 says, I'm on my way home. So that's like 25 minutes. And 11:20, she's not home. So I'm like, okay, well, where is she? Did the car break down in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, or what it is? So just, natural anxiety, natural anxiety of being a father. Um, it's just that's the nature of it. I don't even know why did I say that? What would that relate to? I don't know. I now have to make it relate to something. Yeah. But just as, okay, let's relate it. Just as we would have no, and I was thinking, I'm worried about her, and I was thinking, well, I should be worried like this about all my disciples. I thought, well, what if the car breaks down and what if something happens? I think, well, I should be worried that way about all my disciples because the devotees should see everyone like their children. That's the idea. Okay, so Hari Bhakti says, is it possible to go back to Godhead without compassion for everyone? Um, oh, Scarlett says she has 6 kids, so 6 times my anxiety, or 3 times my anxiety. Hari Bhakti, I would rather answer your question and say one of the qualities of a devotee is compassion. So then the question, I'll ask you the question, can I be a devotee without being compassionate? Well, you could do devotional service, but can you be a devotee? Well, not a pure devotee. And can you go back to Godhead if you're not a pure devotee? No. So can I be a pure devotee without compassion? No, because compassion is a quality of a devotee. It's just like you may remember this conversation where a reporter was asking Srila Prabhupada about bad gurus or false gurus. I think specifically he said, bad gurus. And Prabhupada said, if he's bad, how can he be a guru? So that's a oxymoron, bad guru. There are no bad gurus. Gurus are all good. Yes? Yes. So sometimes a devotee will do something which is considered very, very bad. And someone will say to me, how is it that a devotee will do this? Let's say a devotee did something illegal, not something light, but something heavy. And you ask me, how is it that a devotee does this? And my answer would be, devotee doesn't do that. But you're saying this devotee did it. So I understand your question. Krishna Das did it. But my answer is, but devotees don't do that. Can Krishna Das be a devotee? He can be, but it's not what devotees do. Why is it that sometimes devotees do this? And if what you're saying is not what devotees do, my answer would be, but devotees don't do it. So at least in that moment when he did it, he wasn't acting as a devotee and really, in this sense, didn't have the right to be called a devotee. So can devotees not be compassionate? Devotees in practice may not be compassionate, but pure devotees are compassionate. And so, it's not like that. The idea is, well, I want to go back to Godhead. What's the least I have to do to get there? Like, dear teacher, I want to pass this class. Like, what's the minimal thing I have to do? Is it pass the exam? Do I have to come to the courses? Do I have to do all the homework? Do I have to write an essay? What's like the minimal I can do? And she said, well, you don't have to come to class. Just pass your test and write the essay. Okay, okay. So then you don't come to class. You just want to graduate the class with the least resistance as possible. So that's not the attitude for a devotee. Guru Maharaj, what's the least I have to do and I can still go back to Godhead? Is it okay if I only watch? Like, what's the number of movies I can watch per month? How much onions and garlic can I have every month and still go back to Godhead? What about tea and coffee? It's like once a week, okay? That's not the attitude of a devotee. The attitude of a devotee is, I just want to please Krishna and I want to do what Krishna wants. And if, Hari Bhakti, if you don't feel compassionate, at least act compassionately. Follow the orders of those who are compassionate and serve them. Okay. Maharaj says, hold on. If we pray for a quality like compassion to manifest in us, does the Lord give us an opportunity to be compassionate, or we just get the quality of compassion? Yeah, I would say both. It can be individual also, not necessarily the same for everyone. I mean, don't you always have an opportunity to manifest compassion? Is there a time when you don't? You can always be compassionate, kind. Yeah, and compassion manifests in many ways. Manifests when you shop, when you read the labels, so you don't buy anything with animal products. That's compassion. When you're walking down the street, there's lots of ants. That's an opportunity, right? If you see someone suffering and you can relieve their suffering, if you can do something to help spread Krishna consciousness, and that's compassion. If you decide, let's put on this festival, that's a manifestation of your compassion. Let's do this project or do this program. It will help people. It's a manifestation of your compassion. So there are unlimited ways to show compassion. Oh, after the Sunday feast, we have buckets of prasadam left over. Let's go out somewhere where the poor people live or don't live, where the poor people are trying to live. Let's give them prasadam. Oh, I just got inherited some money, or some money from extra money has come. Let me buy some books. Give the books to the book distributors, or maybe I'll distribute them myself, like that. So there's always opportunity. for compassion. You can, for some people, like who are working very hard, all they can really do is give money. So they might give money to book distribution, give money to the TOVP, give money to their local temple, sponsor a Sunday feast, whatever. And maybe that's all they can do, but those are all acts of compassion because you could have used that money for yourself, but you used that money for service out of compassion, right? Correct? Correcto? ¿Está bien? Sí. Okay. Um, Anything else? Other question or comment? It's interesting how um, in this world we do things to fulfill ourselves, but so many of the things we do also bring anxiety and stress with it, isn't it? Like it's hard to be happy. Have you noticed? Sometimes it's very stressful and difficult to manipulate things in a way that's going to make you happy, especially when you're manipulating people. Manipulating material things is easier, but they don't always go the way we want them, and we don't always have the resources and facility to do it. So trying to be happy is like there's a lot of stress that comes with it. And um, this one this one relationship expert was asked the question, is it possible to have a relationship with the opposite sex and not go through difficulty or stress or suffering or hurt? And she said, no, it's impossible. That that's comes with that. If you want the prize, then these are the things you go through. What to speak if you want to have lots of money? We're talking millions, or you want to be a billionaire. You don't think that's going to be stressful? You're going to invest so much time and money. You're going to have to deal with so many people and so many problems, and the people themselves are often the biggest problems. And you're going to have competition, and they're going to try to copy your product, and they're going to lie about you, and you know. So it's the business of being happy is not an easy business to run. There's a lot of stress in it, isn't it? Okay. Karina says, I was asked by someone, are you a full-time devotee? No, half the time I'm in Maya. I'm a 24/7 devotee. Full-time devotee is a phrase which means you live in a temple, or it could be a phrase where, you've retired from work and you're just doing service. So then you're a full-time devotee. But that's not if we understand what it means, then we can apply it. But we should all be full-time devotees in the sense that there's no question of not being a full-time devotee. Either you're a devotee or not a devotee. Are you a devotee? Well, Prabhu, I'm a devotee before 8 a.m., but after that, all hell lets loose after that. And then I come back, I'm a devotee after 7. I come back, I do my RT. And like that, finish my rounds. Um, it's not like that. Either, you're a devotee, you should be a devotee 24/7. That's the idea. Hopefully, yeah. It's easier to act yourself into a new way of thinking than to think yourself into a new way of acting. That's in relation to something that we're talking about. Yeah. Oh, yeah. About being compassionate. So act compassionately, and then you'll start thinking and feeling compassionately. That's anyone who's acted compassionately realizes that pretty much instantaneously you feel compassionate. Have you had that experience? You act compassionately, even if you don't want to, you start feeling compassion. There, I have a story for you. When I was a younger devotee, like very new, within the first year, I was made temple president, and so everyone was very new. And there was we had a normal schedule where after the morning program, we cleaned the temple, we made lunch, and then we went on Harinam. Because Harinam was our basic service. We did it every day. And we went on Harinam like 10 o'clock or 10:30. So breakfast was over at 9. We cleaned the temple, cooked this and that, and we'd go out. And nobody wanted to go out. Every day, nobody wanted to go out. Some days it was cold. We were in Vancouver, Canada, and so it was freezing. And we'd go out on Harinam, all day. It gets dark in the winter at 3:30. And it's just, nobody was interested. All of us, all four of us would go out. At the end of the day, we'd be out 7 hours maybe. And we distribute 8 magazines between all four of us in 8 hours. So do the math. That's like 1 magazine an hour. So we each distributed like 2 magazines in 2 hours. That's a lot of no's, isn't it? But these are crowded downtown streets. You're talking like every second, at least 5 people walk by you. You just, right? Every second, there's like a crowd. Okay, well, underestimate 3 people every second. So in 1 minute, there's close to 200 people walking by you. 200 people, and how many people walk by? 200 times 60, right? So 12,000 people walk by you, and you sell 2 magazines. You have 12,000 opportunities and 2 magazines. That's not easy. But the act of offering the magazines and the fact that we were doing Harinam right next to, one of us would distribute magazines and the Harinam party would be there right next to us. And so we'd be hearing the whole, excuse me, sir, here, take. I just to offer it. There was a bliss in offering it, and then somebody would stop. So anyone who took a magazine was very interested, and we talked to them, and it was a beautiful exchange. And then we show the magazine to a lot of people who wouldn't take it, but so this is what would happen every day. Remember I said every morning I couldn't get them out? This is a true story. Every morning they didn't want to go out. And every evening when it was time to come back, they didn't want to come back. Isn't that interesting? But the next morning again, they didn't want to go out. But by going out and acting, manifesting compassion, they were feeling like we can't go back now. There's people here that don't have the magazine, or there's people here that are not hearing the holy name. Of course, we were going back to have Bhagavad Gita class, but they were feeling like compassion because they were out there trying to give compassion. It's interesting, don't you think? That was just I was underscoring what the quote that Kamalochan presented of me, that you act by acting a certain way, your mind changes, your feelings change. So Myra says, is that also applicable to enthusiasm? Yes, because some devotees may say that it's difficult to have enthusiasm in times when everything is working against us. Yeah. Well, you could also say, Myresh, be optimistic. And optimistic means be hopeful. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to be enthusiastic, but we should be optimistic and hopeful that if we work positively, we'll get Krishna's help and mercy and things will get better. So I think that's also important, don't you think? But there is evidence that if you act enthusiastically, you will become enthusiastic. and even faking it and saying, like, we're going on Sankirtan and we don't want to go, and you're telling yourself, I love this. I love to give out Prabhupada's books. This is my favorite activity. By saying that, it begins to give you enthusiasm to do it. So sometimes we have to push ourselves. I was thinking this morning, it was something extremely important, and I've spoken about it before, but I think we need to speak about it again. And I don't know even if I've spoken about it before, if you've understood it or how you've understood it. But when Arjuna didn't want to fight, basically he was telling Krishna, I don't feel like fighting. I don't have it in me. And here are the reasons. And there's a lot of family affection there, right? And someone could accuse Krishna of not being empathetic, because Krishna was basically saying, don't give into your feelings, wasn't he? I mean, really analyze it. Isn't that what he's saying? How have these impurities come upon you? In other words, Krishna was not empathizing with Arjuna's feelings. He was not empathizing with Arjuna's feelings. He was pretty much denying his feelings and saying, don't give in to these feelings. This is not going to help you. Isn't that interesting? So what's the message there? That one teacher said, don't believe everything you feel. Because we tend to believe everything we feel. Or like, whatever I feel is like absolute. The whole world is now evolving around how I feel. And if things are bad, the whole world is bad. If things are good, the whole world is good. So I was thinking of this because a devotee had written me yesterday, and like, how do I go on when things are difficult? And I said, that's really the message of the Gita, or one of the main messages of the Gita. Go on despite how you feel, because if you give into your feelings, you won't be able to go on, because your feelings will guide you and direct you. Now, if the feelings are good and they guide you to Krishna, that's good, but your feelings won't always guide you to Krishna. So can I continue to act enthusiastically even though I don't feel enthusiastic? Well, if we use Bhagavad Gita, basically we could say that's what Krishna's telling Arjuna, fight, do it. I don't feel like it. I don't want to. No, don't give in to the feeling that is the wrong thing. Just, it's almost like do it in spite of how you feel, because this is the right thing. So often, what separates a mature, responsible adult from an immature, irresponsible adult is the ability to act responsibly no matter how you feel. Like, what if a parent says to, the 5-year-old, I don't feel like cooking today, so you just fast tonight. Can you do this for me? I'm sick. I don't feel like it. I just want to watch a movie. Take care of yourself. You can't do that. In a sense, they should have laws that would arrest parents who do that. But that's what we often do, isn't it? And Krishna's telling me to do this. I don't feel like it. Well, we have to learn to be dutiful despite how we feel. Venkatesh says, what factors will motivate followers to follow a spiritual leader who shows oneself as human and perfect in the vision of the subordinate? How will the caring, forgiving qualities of a leader be then valued by followers? What it will do is, well, I just heard a story about, I think it was a police officers' convention. And the person who facilitated that was describing the challenges he personally had and the fears he had and the stresses he had of being a policeman or being a whatever, sergeant in the police. He was completely open about it, something that generally would never be discussed, because as a police officer, you want to come across as strong. And then, so what happened is the other police officers started opening up about their challenges, because everyone was thinking that the others don't have challenges. So when they open up, then they realize, oh, we all have similar challenges. So then after the event, some of the police officers came up to the speaker and said, thank you for doing this. In other words, being vulnerable yourself, because I really needed this. So what happens is if I, as a leader, present myself as superhuman, everyone else will do the same thing, and no one will ever be able to admit when they have a problem. So when they have the problem, they won't tell you, because the culture is that nobody has problems. We're all like super beings. And so rather than say, I need help, they'll just mess it up, right? Rather than they'll say, I'm not smart enough to do this. Can you help me? They'll try to do it and they'll mess it up. So when the leader's vulnerable, it creates a culture. It creates a culture of which is more realistic. And leaders are often honored because of their position, but they're still humans. And if the leader is not humble enough to admit his own faults, the second problem is the leader's not humble. He won't listen to anybody because he thinks he knows everything. And that is the downfall of the leader. And it's a paradigm of leadership that doesn't work in the long run. And many companies use it, but it doesn't work in the long run. And statistics will confirm this. So, question about prayer with japa relating to a practice of the Tonglen Buddhist, that is, take and give. So the question is, if I want to make a request for something, can I do japa? Imagining that a person's physical or mental evil leaves his body or mind, and such energy is dissolved. Would it be helpful to reinforce the practice of directed prayer in this way? I would say that you can do that before you chant or after you chant. Because while you chant, you're trying to connect directly with Krishna. So it might be you could do that a little bit, but should not be the main focus of your japa. It's like if you have a relationship with somebody and while you're talking to them, you're thinking about somebody else that this person could help. But right now they're interacting with you. So that's what japa is. So Parananda says, it was amazing being a full-time devotee. 8 hours on the street with Prabhupada's books and kirtan every day. It was amazing, like an army. I understand what you're talking about. Yes, okay. So, okay, it's time to end class. Thank you all. Hare Krishna, everyone. I have to leave now because my daughter's car broke down and we're going to try to get it fixed. So, Hare Krishna to everyone. And I guess Koromani will come shortly.
Thank you very much for today's class. Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you on Friday. And I think Friday night, for those who are who are not in Europe or in the right place, then we begin the Japa workshop about connecting with the holy name through Shishastakam. Hare Krishna. Be there or be in Maya.
Hare Krishna Gurudev, please accept my.
It sounds like I'm cursing you to be in Maya if you don't come. All right, no. Be there or, yeah. Okay, I'll retract that statement. Be there and be Krishna conscious. Okay. Brahmani, I have to leave now. Hare Krishna. Nice to see all the digital versions of yourselves, but the live versions are much better. Hare Krishna.